All right. So I got a couple different Trump stories here for you guys today. The first one is kind of just a confirmation of something that I think we've known for months at this point, but it is essentially that Donald Trump confirming here, the man himself, in a similar vein to Joseph Robinette Biden, that he is simply not going to be participating in the debates. And obviously the first Republican debate is going to be happening on Wednesday, so that'll be a big event. Obviously it's less of an event with Donald Trump not being on the stage, but all of the rest of these candidates, who in my opinion have essentially zero chance of actually defeating Trump, are going to be up there on stage. And it could be interesting in terms of how they're going to attack Trump. You know, he has all of these indictments that are racking up. There's a couple different people in there that could be interesting players, right? Obviously, like Chris Christie is going to be an interesting character to watch out for. Ron DeSantis, it'll be interesting if he tries to take a couple swipes at Trump or something like that. So it's definitely going to be interesting, and I'll cover it when we get a lot of those clips coming out. But here directly from Donald Trump explaining why he is not going to be joining them on that debate stage, he says here, "New CBS poll just out has me leading the field by legendary numbers. Trump, 62%, 46 points above DeSanctimonious, who is crashing like an ailing bird." Crashing like an ailing bird, folks. Okay, I don't know if I've ever heard anybody use that phrasing, crashing like an ailing bird. I honestly kind of respect it. Not bad there. Ramaswamy, 7%. Pence, 5%. Scott, 3%. Haley, 2%. And Sloppy Chris Christie, 2%. Sloppy Chris, we call him, folks, okay? And then Ada Hutchinson, right? Remember that interview that he did a couple weeks back with, I think it was Sean Hannity, where he was basically like, why do you call him Ada? His name isn't Ada, it's Asa Hutchinson. And Trump was just like, oh, I don't know. I think that's, more suitable for him. And then he just didn't explain himself. But Ada Hutchinson down at 1%. I mean, a lot of these guys, I don't really understand why they're running. I mean, they're kind of just lighting money on fire. Essentially, none of them have any chance of beating Donald Trump here. I mean, DeSantis, he's been, as Trump pointed out here, crashing like an ailing bird. Ramaswamy has been catching up to Ron DeSantis. And in some polls, I've even seen Ramaswamy beating Ron DeSantis. But he's also not going to take down Trump because he's been the biggest sycophant of Trump. And then the rest of these guys, I mean, Mike Pence, come on, get the fuck out of here. Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, I mean, half these people are barely even willing to mention Donald Trump's name, certainly not in a negative light. And then, of course, we got Sloppy Chris over here, who I think is, again, pretty interesting in terms of his willingness to go directly at Trump's throat. But at the same time, it's not as if he's, like, better on, policy necessarily than Donald Trump is. So, I mean, it's pretty much just a wash. Now, in terms of just the principle of it, right, obviously, the same exact take as I had with Joe Biden, of course he should debate. Of course the Republican and Democratic parties should be implementing rules that force any candidate who is potentially going to be on their ticket to participate in the debates, right? I mean, this isn't something you should just be able to skirt around. I mean, certainly not with somebody like Joe Biden, who the majority of Democrats even say they don't want him to be the nominee for 2024, and Democrats aren't even hosting debates, right? At least Republicans are having some debates. Trump is just deciding to sit out of it. And, I'm also kind of surprised because one of the things that I thought Donald Trump might try to pull in terms of like his rhetorical backing out of these debates is that the Republican Party is setting up a rule essentially that if you're going to be on the debate stage and you're going to participate in that way, you have to sign a loyalty pledge that says you'll support whoever the eventual nominee is. And I kind of figured maybe Trump will use that and say, I'm not signing the loyalty pledge, so therefore they're not allowing me on the debate stage. But no, he's basically just saying I'm leading in the polls, so I'm not going to entertain the idea that I should be held to account for my previous actions or what my future policy goals are going to be. He just kind of wants to skate around it. And I mean, it's honestly pathetic. I mean, it's obviously cowardly. And so instead of going to the debates, he decided to go run into a corner with Tucker Carlson. And apparently they're going to be launching this as a sort of a competing programming here at the same time as the debates. And this is going to be on, of course, formerly known as Twitter, but now known as the X platform. So, I mean, that'll also be interesting. I'm sure it's going to be entertaining over on Twitter, seeing these clips flying past from the debate and then from Donald Trump. And, who knows what the fuck they're going to be talking about in this Tucker interview. It could be completely unrelated to the debate. And, he could also be taking direct shots at some of his other candidates. So, I mean, it'll definitely be interesting. Again, I'll keep you guys updated as we get that. But Donald Trump, again, being a little bitch boy, deciding to run away from these debates in the same vein as Joe Biden as well. We also had some direct shots that were taken at Fox News, who is hosting this debate. So it's kind of a double middle finger, both from Trump and from Tucker Carlson, obviously, who used to be the primetime anchor at Fox News, for trying to run this, not only refusing to go to the debate, but then running this counter programming at the same exact time. And so here from Trump himself attacking Fox News. He says, "Why doesn't Fox and Friends show all of the polls where I am beating Biden by a lot? They just won't do it. Also, they purposely show the absolutely worst pictures of me, especially the big orange one with my chin pulled all the way back." I don't even know which picture he's talking about there. The big orange one with my chin pulled all the way back kind of just sounds like your average Trump picture, but he says they think they are getting away with something they're not. Just like 2016 all over again, and then they want me to debate. So, I mean, it is kind of true in a sense that Fox News, for at least a little bit there, was trying to push like Ron DeSantis as the new big guy, and they've been doing all of these, bizarre puff pieces on guys like, Tim Scott, who again is polling at like 3% or something, right? So there was this other clip that came out that we covered over on Breaking Points, right? And it was essentially Fox News doing their like so-called power rankings, but then the power rankings weren't even based on any actual like polling data or support that these people have. It was literally just like throwing random names at the wall and hoping that potentially people get excited about them and then one of them sticks. So the Fox network, I mean, obviously Rupert Murdoch leading the Fox network certainly was trying to bet on one of these other candidates, but then you just end up with the same situation similar to, 2016 as well, where you have all of these, not Trump candidates, and they're just sort of like washing each other out, and none of them is going to be strong enough to actually defeat Donald Trump. So again, kind of pointless runs. Now, this next part that I wanted to get to here, right? Obviously, that's my take on the debates and all of that. And obviously, I think one of the things that's going to be brought up during this debate, I mean, this is sort of a better transition, but, one of the things that I think could be brought up during the debate is obviously, again, the indictments that Donald Trump is facing. We had the one that was in, we had the one that was up in New York over the Stormy Daniels stuff and the hush money payments. We had the one that was in D.C. over the fake slates of electors. We had, the one that was down at Mar-a-Lago in Florida over the classified documents. And now we have the new one that just dropped that I didn't get to cover while I was on vacation last week, which is the one in my home state of Georgia over basically, again, his efforts to overturn the 2020 election. And so this is going to be another interesting aspect of this is like, how are these cases going to play out as this election carries on, right? Especially with Donald Trump facing less and less accountability from the public and from other people within his own party by refusing to go to these debates. But just some updates in terms of where Donald Trump is standing right now with some of these cases against him and how he has been reacting. Hasn't been going great. So here from the Washington Post, they say Trump ups the ante on going after judges and witnesses. Where's the line? Okay, so I want to read a little bit of this. This is basically him just launching a full frontal assault against the people who are in charge of handling the cases that he is facing. And keep in mind, I mean, I have my doubts just because of the tendencies within this country of elites never facing accountability. I have my doubts that Trump is actually going to like end up behind jail bars, but he is facing, over 90 or over 100 actual, serious charges right now. I mean, 4 different indictments over, 90 plus charges. All of them carry significant, actual jail time if he's convicted on them. So it certainly could produce some, some actual accountability there, but he's deciding to basically target directly the legal system and try to do a little bit of like light witness tampering, right? So here from the Washington Post again, they say thrice indicted former President Donald Trump seems intent on testing the rules that apply to tampering with witnesses and intimidating judges. Despite being warned about such things, he shows no sign of slowing down, effectively daring the legal system to do something about it. So this is an actual potential. I don't think it's going to happen, but you could end up with a situation where because he is violating the rules of him not being in jail right now, as many Americans are when they're awaiting trial, right? He's not in jail because the judges are allowing him to go out and do his thing under a certain set of rules. One of those rules would be don't do witness tampering, don't lob vague threats at the judge, right? Those would be some of the basic standards for remaining out of prison before your trial. And so we're getting to this weird situation where it's like, how do you analyze from the judge's perspective this guy who is going absolutely buck wild on you and the jurors and witnesses, right? And balance that with like the politics of this and having the leading front runner for the GOP candidacy locked behind bars in the middle of like the election, right? I mean, there's so many different working pieces of this, and will that just amp him up even further? And what would his supporters do then? And how do you balance that with like maintaining a legitimacy of the court, where if this was anybody else besides Donald Trump, they certainly would have been, held pre-trial if they did these same things. But more on the specifics, they say a week ago, Trump lobbed a vague threat on his social media site, Truth Social, writing, "If you go after me, I'm coming after you." He also attacked the former Vice President Mike Pence for Pence's apparent testimony in the January 6th case, and he basically accused a Georgia prosecutor of an affair with a gang member. Now, Trump has turned his attention to the judge who warned him about intimidation tactics, as well as a key witness in the Georgia case in which he faces possible indictment within days. And obviously, this is an older article, so he has been indicted on that. But they say on Sunday afternoon, Trump promoted a post on his Truth Social platform that falsely accused the judge in the January 6th case, Tanya Chutkin, of having admitted she is running election interference against Trump. And he calls her highly partisan, very biased, and unfair. And I mean, these kinds of things like have consequences, right? I mean, that wasn't obviously all of it. I'll link it down in the description if you want to go read the rest of that article. But I mean, this is now inspiring some of his supporters to actually, directly threaten some of these judges, some of these jurors. I mean, it's pointed out here by PBS NewsHour, Trump conspiracies inspire threats against judges, jurors, and election workers. So, I mean, again, this shit is heating up. I mean, obviously, Trump is leading by a mile. I still don't think that any of the other Republican candidates have really any legitimate shot at taking him down for the Republican nomination. But it's definitely going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out with all of these cases heading into an election season where he's facing all of these serious charges. It's going to be interesting to watch some of these debates without Donald Trump on the stage and having people like take, little pot shots at him, especially with Chris Christie. That'll be one to keep your eye on. And yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what Trump does with Tucker Carlson in this counter programming. And you certainly do sort of see more of the split within the Republican Party, showing itself right now between like the more establishment wing, the more like what Trump calls the neocons versus the, so-called America First MAGA wing of the party led by Donald Trump, obviously. But yeah, I mean, it's only heating up from here. And again, I'm going to have another Trump story later in the day, which kind of gives us an indication in terms of the mindset of a lot of Trump supporters right now. I mean, obviously, we just talked about the, the direct threats against the judges and the jurors and, some of the election workers as well. But beyond that, I mean, we've gotten some new polling data that's come out that essentially confirms that a lot of these people are basically in a cult.
Everyone is saying good politic guy has the best politic. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying